A Day in Faralor, The Dragon's Cave by Ryan Baker. One fine day in the dimension of Faralor, on the southern edge of the land of Waltaker, 4 friends were at school. The year is 2004. It was before the lunch period. The 4 students are Angela Jackson, Samuel Briggs, Borazia Starwind, and Davis Rayner. The day is April 20th. The class that is just before the lunch period is computer class. The teacher of the class is Mrs. Amanda Goldberg. The lesson that the class is going over is on spreadsheets. Soon enough, the period is almost over. "Well, class," said Mrs. Goldberg, "your assignment for tomorrow is to complete the spreadsheets." Soon afterward, the class has ended. That was where the 4 students had gone up to the cafeteria. Little do they realize that they would soon encounter the resident class clowns, Sherlock Rockclaw and Borderix. Borderix is a ogre, and Sherlock Rockclaw is a Dorasian. They were doing a film, with a video camera. The 2 were doing the video for the A.V Club. "Oh brother," said Angela, "here they come again." "What do you mean?" asked Samuel. "Sherlock and Borderix are here again," said Davis. "Why do I get the feeling that Sherlock would try to come on to Borazia?" said Samuel. All the while, Sherlock and Borderix were getting closer to the seats. "Hey, Sherlock," said Borderix, "isn't that Borazia over there?" "Indeed it is," said Sherlock. "Why don't you go over there and ask her out?" said Borderix. That was where Sherlock had gone over to Borazia. Borderix was taping the entire event. "Borazia," said Sherlock, "will you go out with me?" "I keep telling you," said Borazia, "you're just not my type." That was where Sherlock had turned around and seen Borderix taping him. "Hey Sherlock," said Borderix, "keep trying." "If you insist," said Sherlock. That was where Sherlock had continued his efforts to get a date. Sherlock had ended up getting a hit in the groin for his efforts. Borderix was trying to keep from laughing. "Borderix," narrator says,
said Sherlock, "do you mind?" Just then, Alexis Creighton, a succubus, and Carrie Clorax, a cat girl, had entered the area. "So boys," said Alexis, "how is your video coming along?" "Just fine without you two," said Sherlock. "Well, Borderix," said Carrie, "Alexis and I have almost completed our project." "Hey Borderix," said Davis, "I have an idea." "What would that be?" asked Borderix. "Samuel, Borazia, Angela, and I were planning on going to see Zarordos the Ancient Dragon after school," said Davis. "Is that so?" said Sherlock. "Then Borderix and I will accompany you on your trip." "Carrie and I also want to join you on your trip," said Alexis. "Then it's agreed," said Davis. Later that day, after the 8 students had eaten their lunches, and attended the afternoon classes, the 8 had gone back to their homes. They had also done their homework. Before going out. Soon enough, they were on their way to the cave of Zarordos the Ancient Dragon. Zarordos the Ancient Dragon's cave is to the east. It is about a 20-minute trip. 20 minutes later, the 8 had arrived at the cave of Zarordos. "Well," said Borderix, "it doesn't seem to be inhabited. I have a feeling we will meet Zarordos very soon," said Sherlock. At that moment, Zarordos had appeared. "So," said Zarordos, "I have visitors." "You must be the one known as Zarordos," said Alexis. "Indeed, I am," said Zarordos. "You 8 don't know this, but I have witnessed many events. I have heard many tales." "What kinds of tales?" asked Carrie. "There was the time that the orc warrior Larus had first encountered the descendant of the evil warrior Sholor Talo," said Zarordos. "What other tales are there?" asked Samuel. "There was the time that the warrior god, Arokta had battled the serpent Ralzox," said Zarordos. "There was also the time some friends had a house party." "Do you know any other tales?" asked Davis. "There was the tale of the samurai," said Zarordos. "It is about his adventure to reclaim a stolen object." "What is the tale called?" asked Sherlock. "The tale is called The Tale of the Samurai. The Search for the Object," said Zarordos. "Interesting," said Borderix. All the while, Sherlock was continuing his efforts to come on to Borazia. End of Part 1. Tale 1, The Tale of the Samurai. The Search for the Object. The year is 1996. The dimension is Artiox. The date is May 7th. It was on this day that an adventure will begin. The adventure will begin in the town of Kashra. The samurai, Alexander Lee, was in the forest, training. At that moment, a resident from the town came rushing through the forest. The resident was being chased by a troll. Alexander had seen the person coming. He had also seen the troll coming into the area. That was where Alexander had stepped in to intercept the troll. "All right, troll," said Alexander, "why are you chasing the human?" "Whatever makes you think that you could stop me," said the troll. "We'll just see about that," said Alexander. As soon as Alexander said that, he had raised his sword, in preparation for the attack. "Prepare to defend yourself," said the troll. As soon as the troll said that, he had charged at Alexander. Alexander had managed to slice through the troll's armor. The troll's weapon was also damaged in the fight. "Most impressive, human," said the troll, "but you will not defeat my master." As soon as the troll said that, he had warped out of the area. "What was that all about?" asked Alexander Lee. "I'm not certain," said the person, "but I think the troll may be related to the recent disappearance of the armor of the frontier warrior." "Frontier warrior?" said Alexander Lee. As soon as Alexander said that, he started to remember what the frontier warrior had done. "Comrade," said Alexander, "were you able to find out the name of the troll's master?" "I could hear the troll say something about a biomechanical being known as the Wraith Master," said the person. "Wraith Master?" said Alexander, "by any chance, did you get any other information about the Wraith Master?" "Unfortunately," said the person, "I did not." All the while, the two were being watched by a person. The person is, in fact, the Wraith Master. The Wraith Master is watching the two, using the staff of Korok. "So," said the Wraith Master, "it seems the samurai now knows of me." That was where the troll had entered the room where the Wraith Master is located in. The room is part of the castle. It is overlooking a passageway, which is basically a stone road. The stone road has many twists in it. "Sir," said the troll, "I am sorry that I had failed you." "Don't worry about it," said the Wraith Master. The troll looked at the Wraith Master with a confused look. "Sir," said the troll, "I don't understand you completely." "It's all part of my plan," said the Wraith Master. "Sir," said the troll, "pardon me for saying this. But have you lost your mind?" As soon as the troll said that, he could hear some laughing. The laughing belonged to a dark elf mercenary. The mercenary is named Kertora or Cutter. "Foolish troll," said Kertora, "do not question our master." All of a sudden, the troll drew out a blade and charged at Kertora. "I'll show you," said the troll. All the while, he and Kertora were fighting. "Enough," roared the Wraith Master. The Wraith Master had used his electro-charge blaster on both of the warriors. "Sorry, boss," said the troll. "It won't happen again," said Kertora. "Boys," said the Wraith Master, "soon, we will have total victory." Meanwhile, back in Kashra, Alexander had picked up his equipment, and started on his way. Just before Alexander had started on his trip, he had met with Kurlandus, a two-headed giant. "Old friend," said Kurlandus, "I wish you luck on your mission." "Kurlandus," said Alexander, "do you know anything about a Wraith Master?" "Wraith Master?" said Kurlandus, "I know of him." "What kind of information can you tell me?" asked Alexander. "Back when I was a leader of a bandit gang," said Kurlandus, "I had encountered him. His hideout is the castle Necrosior." "Do you remember anything else?" asked Alexander. "Yeah," said Kurlandus, "it's about 12 days' ride from here. I must warn you." "Warn me about what?" asked Alexander. "The Wraith Master has mastery over dark powers," said Kurlandus. "Not only that, but his henchmen will be out to make sure you don't get the armor." As soon as Kurlandus said that, he handed Alexander a map showing the route to the castle. The first stop was the hills directly to the north of the town. That was where Alexander had started on his way. "Good luck, old friend," Kurlandus said, as he went back into his house. Soon enough, Alexander had made it to the hills. Meanwhile, at Castle Necrosior, the Wraith Master was watching the events. "So," said the Wraith Master, "the former bandit has led the samurai on his way." Just then, a mysterious individual had entered the room. "My lord," said the individual, "why did you summon me?" "I have hired your services for one thing," said the Wraith Master. "You are to eliminate the samurai Alexander Lee." "Understood, sir," said the individual. All the while, Alexander was traveling through the mountains. The individual had started on his way to intercept Alexander. Alexander's next destination is the village of elves. It will take Alexander a day to get there. Little does Alexander realize that he would get himself in over his head. Soon enough, Alexander had made it to the village. Alexander had seen the village leader. That was where the village leader had gone over to see Alexander. "Greetings, stranger," said the village leader. That was where Alexander had noticed that the villagers were acting unusual. "What seems to be the matter with the villagers?" asked Alexander. "Most of the villagers are controlled by a being known as Talakar the Serpent," said the village leader. "My daughter and I are the only ones not affected." "Where can I find this Talakar?" asked Alexander. As the two were talking, Talakar the Serpent was sneaking up behind the two. "Comrade," said the village leader, "I think you should turn around." "Why is that?" asked Alexander. At that moment, Talakar had attacked. Alexander had managed to dodge the attack. "Whatever makes you think you can stop me?" said Talakar. "That's because I intend to free these people from your evil control," said Alexander. "Hey, stranger," said the village leader, "aim for Talakar's chest, in the upper right area." Alexander had managed to hit Talakar in the chest. That proved to be the turning point. Talakar had fallen to the ground. "You shall not defeat my master," said Talakar. As soon as he said that, he mysteriously transformed into a regular snake. At that moment, the villagers had returned to normal. Said Alexander, "that was weird." At that moment, the village leader's daughter came into the area. "Father," said Santora Lightwind, "it is good to see you." "Stranger," said Apra Lightwind, "what is your name?" "It is Alexander Lee," said Alexander. "Alexander," said Apra, "I would like to introduce you to my daughter." "Daughter?" said Alexander. "Yes," said Apra, "and as a reward for freeing this town, you get my daughter's hand in marriage." Said Alexander, "I would have to refuse." "Why is that?" asked Apra. "Well," said Alexander, "I think of myself as a person who would like to get to know a person before getting intimate. Besides, what kind of person would come up with a reward like that?" "In that case," said Apra, "allow Santora to join you on your trip." "If you insist," said Alexander. That was where Alexander and Santora had started on their way to the Wraithmaster's castle. Soon enough, 9 days have passed. Alexander and Santora had made it to the town of Gorokan. Little do they realize that they would encounter the ex-witch hunter Ivan Cervantes. "Alexander," said Santora, "how did you become a samurai?" "Years ago," said Alexander, "my uncle, Michael Lee, had defended the hometown, when a group of raiders had attacked the town." "What happened next?" asked Santora. "After the attack," said Alexander, "my uncle had taught me the way of the samurai. Unfortunately, 8 years ago, my uncle was killed by a cloaked individual." Just then, the two had entered a diner. That was where a waitress had led them to an open table. The two don't realize that some of the Wraithmaster's henchmen will be there. After Alexander sits at the table, he notices a person at the table across from their table. That person is Ivan Cervantes. "Hey comrade," said Ivan Cervantes, "I would like to introduce myself." "I am Ivan Cervantes." "Ivan Cervantes?" said Alexander, "by any chance, is your father Enrico?" "Indeed," said Ivan. "I am Alexander Lee," said Alexander. Just then, some of the Wraithmaster's henchmen had entered the place. "So," said Ivan, "it looks like the Wraithmaster's henchmen are here." Just then, one of the Wraithmaster's henchmen, a orc, grabs a hold of one of the workers. "Where's the samurai?" growls the orc. At that moment, Alexander had stood up. "Hey," said Alexander, "leave that person alone." "So," said the leader of the group, Clardiaxon, "you're the samurai." As he was speaking, the leader was motioning the others to move into position. "Boys," said the leader, "get him." Alexander immediately grabs his sword and battles the warriors. Alexander was quickly outnumbered. "Hey Alexander," said Ivan, "do you want some help?" "Of course," said Alexander. That was where Ivan and Santora had entered the fight. Soon enough, the battle was won. "That was unusual," said Santora. Little do the trio realize that the hired warrior of the Wraithmaster will intercept them on their way to the castle. "Well," said Ivan, "I'll cover the charge for the meal." "In that case," said Alexander, "Santora and I will go on ahead." "By the way Ivan, thanks." As soon as Alexander said that, he and Santora had started on their way. All the while, the Wraithmaster was watching the events. "Sir," said Kurtora, "what do you have planned for the Frontier Warrior's armor?" "It's very simple," said the Wraithmaster, "I intend to melt it down into scrap. After that, I will send it to the Dark Void." "Sir," said Kurtora, if you don't mind me asking, but are you insane?" At that moment, Kurtora found himself being tossed across the room. "Soon, I will have my victory. Not even the samurai and his friends can stop me," said the Wraith Master. "Sir," said Kurtora, "if you don't mind me asking, but if the next words out of your mouth," said the Wraith Master, "are you insane? Don't bother." "But was not what I was about to say," said Kurtora. "I was about to ask, how are you going to deal with the samurai?" "Well," said the Wraith Master, "I plan to weaken him, by having the hired warrior fight him. That is when I will come in and finish him." "That plan doesn't make much sense," said Kurtora. "It doesn't have to," said the Wraith Master, "I shall win. I have a bad feeling about this," Kurtora said to himself. Meanwhile, Ivan had caught up with Alexander and Santora. All the while, the two were getting closer to the castle. "So," said Ivan, "how long is it to the castle?" "Only 2 days," said Alexander. At that moment, Alexander had seen something. The thing in question is the hired warrior of the Wraith Master. "I have a feeling we'll be seeing more of the Wraith Master's henchmen," said Alexander. "I sure hope we don't have to deal with them," said Santora. Little do they realize that the hired warrior of the Wraith Master is tracking them. Soon enough, the trio had made it into range of the castle. Along the way, the trio had encountered several of the Wraith Master's henchmen. The trio had also encountered a pair of trolls. The 2 trolls wanted them to find a lost map of the mines. "Well," said Alexander, "it looks like we're here." That was where Ivan had taken out a pair of binoculars. "You're right," said Ivan, "it's just up the path." All of a sudden, the hired warrior came into view. "Well," said the hired warrior, "you must be the samurai." "Indeed I am," said Alexander. As he was speaking, Alexander was observing his would-be opponent. His opponent's armor is a powered robotic armor. "Alexander," said Santora, "I have a feeling that his suit has a flaw. I'll try to draw it out to the open." That was where Santora had gone over to the opponent's left. All of a sudden, the hired warrior charged at Santora. "Santora, watch out," said Alexander. But it was too late, the damage has been done. Alexander and Ivan had charged at the hired warrior. The two were fighting the hired warrior. He was holding his own against the two. That was where Tulak showed his weak spot, in an effort to taunt Alexander and Ivan. The weak spot is on the back of the armor, where the powered armor gets its energy. The switch that Tulak uses to increase his power connects to the generator. "Here's my chance," said Alexander. As soon as he said that, he thrusts his sword into the generator. "Arg!" exclaimed Tulak, as he fell to the ground. "Hoverbike, come to me," said Tulak. That was where Tulak's hoverbike had arrived to pick him up. "We will meet again," said Tulak, "I will have my revenge." As soon as Tulak said that, he programmed his hoverbike to travel to his flying base ship. After that, Ivan had gone over to Santora. "Santora," said Ivan, "are you all right?" "I'll be all right," said Santora. That was where Ivan had turned to Alexander. "Alexander," said Ivan, "I'll hold back and keep an eye on Santora." "Right," said Alexander, "I'll be back for you guys." As soon as Alexander said that, he had started on his way up the twisting road. "I sure hope I make it back in time," said Alexander. All the while, the Wraith Master was watching the events. "Sir," said Kurtora, "what shall you do now?" "I will let him come up to the roof," said the Wraith Master, "you're to hold back." "Understood, sir," said Kurtora. All the while, Alexander was getting closer. "I shall make sure all is right in this realm," said Alexander, "the frontier warrior's armor shall be placed back where it belongs." Moments later, Alexander had made it to the castle gate. All of a sudden, the gate was opened. "That is unusually convenient," said Alexander. "Oh well." That was where Alexander had started on his way through the ancient castle. All the while, the Wraith Master was watching the events. "Soon enough," said the Wraith Master, "I will have total victory." Meanwhile, Alexander was making his way through the castle. "I sure hope Santora and Ivan are all right," Alexander said to himself. Just then, the Wraith Master had sent a message over the PA system. "Alexander," said the Wraith Master, "meet me up on the roof." Said Alexander, "why would the Wraith Master have a PA system?" "Oh well. Now I know where he is at." As soon as Alexander said that, he headed straight for the roof. An hour had passed, and Alexander had made it to the floor that was just below the roof. "I'm almost there," said Alexander. Just then, Kurtora had appeared. "Samurai," said Kurtora, "I shall make sure you don't get to the Wraith Master." As soon as Kurtora said that, he drew out both of his swords. Alexander had drawn out his sword in defense. "Prepare to defend yourself," said Kurtora. At that moment, Kurtora had charged at Alexander. Alexander had countered Kurtora's attacks, move for move. Meanwhile, the Wraith Master was watching the events. "Foolish dark elf mercenary," said the Wraith Master, "you're doing my work." All the while, Kurtora and Alexander were fighting. "You shall fall," said Kurtora. Kurtora had attempted a twin slice. Alexander had narrowly avoided the attack. "By the ancient world," said Kurtora, "you have dodged my attack." "Yeah," said Alexander, "you shall not stop me from getting to the Wraith Master." "Oh really now," said Kurtora. As soon as Kurtora said that, he had charged at Alexander. Alexander had managed to thrust his sword into Kurtora's midsection. "Ack," said Kurtora as he fell to the ground. "You shall not defeat my boss," said Kurtora. As soon as Kurtora said that, he had died. "That was weird," said Alexander, "I wasn't aiming for his vital organs." At that moment, Alexander had gone up to the roof area. Soon enough, Alexander had made it to the roof. As soon as Alexander made it to the roof, he had spotted the Wraith Master. The Wraith Master was waiting for Alexander. The Wraith Master's biomechanical armor was hidden in the shadow cloak. "So," said the Wraith Master, "you have arrived, samurai. Now your quest ends here." "Not likely," said Alexander. At that moment, Alexander had charged at the Wraith Master, with sword in hand. Alexander had managed to slice through the Wraith Master's armor, knocking off the helmet in the process. "That was weird," said Alexander, "I didn't expect it to be over so soon." "I don't think so," said the Wraith Master. All the while, the Wraith Master was moving from behind. He had switched the left gauntlet with a spiked ball and chain. "You shall fall," said the Wraith Master. All of a sudden, the Wraith Master had swung the spiked ball around, and hit Alexander. "Arg!" Alexander exclaimed as he fell to the ground. "Foolish human," said the Wraith Master, "whatever makes you think you can stop me?" All the while, the Wraith Master was bashing Alexander with the spiked ball. "Why don't you just give up?" said the Wraith Master. "Hardly," said Alexander, "you don't know what it's like to be human." At that moment, one of the Wraith Master's hits had knocked Alexander unconscious. "Ha! This is too easy," said the Wraith Master. Meanwhile, Alexander was experiencing a vision. It was from the frontier warrior, Gordon McDaniel. "Alexander," said Gordon, "do not give up. You are close to winning." "Winning?" said Alexander, "how can I?" "In case you didn't notice, but I am unconscious." "Well," said Gordon, "it didn't take me long to defeat the Wraith Master back in 1760. 1760? said Alexander, "that would make him 236 years old." 500 years to be precise, said Gordon. "He was once a normal person, who was cursed when he had attempted to research ancient demonic texts." "Then that would place his date of birth in 1496, said Alexander. "Before you go," said Gordon, "I have some words of advice." "What would that be?" asked Alexander. "Believe in yourself, and you will win," said Gordon. "I also suggest concentrating your energy and attacking the Wraith Master." "I will do so," said Alexander. "I will make sure your armor is returned to its rightful place." Soon afterward, Alexander had awakened. "So," said the Wraith Master, "you're conscious?" "Yes," said Alexander, "and I will take you down." "Not likely," said the Wraith Master. As soon as the Wraith Master said that, he had launched an attack. While the Wraith Master was attacking, Alexander had remembered what Gordon had said. "I will set everything straight," said Alexander. As he was speaking, the Wraith Master had gone for his Staff of Korok. The Wraith Master had started using his powers. All the while, Alexander was slowly moving towards the Wraith Master. Alexander's armor was being damaged, and falling apart. "I've got to finish this," said Alexander. Then, with his last bit of energy, Alexander had charged at the Wraith Master. "This is for all the people you harmed," said Alexander. Alexander had landed the blow on the Wraith Master's armor. Alexander had continued with a frenzy of sword slashes. In the process, the Wraith Master's armor was broken, exposing the dark spirit. The Wraith Master's human-sized body was still there. but it had suffered so much decay, he had to use the biomechanical armor to protect himself. "You shall not stop me," said the Wraith Master. "Not likely," said Alexander. As soon as Alexander said that, he had thrusted the sword through the exposed section of the armor. "Arg," said the Wraith Master. That was where he fell to the ground. "Now, finish the job," said the Wraith Master. That was where Alexander had landed the finishing blow. "It seems you have done what very few have done," said the Wraith Master. "You have beaten me. You may not know this, but you have just avenged your uncle." "What do you mean?" asked Alexander. "It was I whom killed your uncle," said the Wraith Master. At that moment, the Wraith Master had died. Just then, Alexander had noticed a map detailing the location of the frontier warrior's armor. Just then, an alarm had been triggered. "Oh great," said Alexander. "You have better get the armor," said Gordon. "Right," said Alexander. As soon as Alexander said that, he immediately started on his way to the armor. The armor was located 3 levels below. Soon enough, Alexander had made it to the armor's location. "Quick," said Gordon, "the self-destruct mechanism of the Wraith Master's armor will go off, taking the castle." "Right," said Alexander. Alexander had taken the armor, and quickly ran to the door. Moments later, Alexander had made it to the castle gates. "I'm almost there," said Alexander. Just then, he had seen Ivan and Santora. "Hey, Alexander," said Ivan, "I see you have retrieved the frontier warrior's armor." "Yes," said Alexander, "but we don't have much time. The place is about to blow up." "Toss me the armor," said Ivan, "you'll jump across the last section of the bridge." "Right," said Alexander. As soon as Alexander said that, he did what Ivan had said. Ivan had caught the armor. Just then, the remote sensor that was connected to the Wraith Master's self-destruct system had activated. The castle was leveled in the process. "Well," said Alexander, "I guess that's the end of the mission." "Apparently so," said Ivan. "Let's get the armor back where it belongs," said Santora. After she said that, Ivan, Santora and Alexander had gone back to the town of Kashra. As the trio was riding, Alexander had looked back. He had seen the sprite of the Wraith Master at the bridge. "One day soon," said the Wraith Master, "we will meet again." The end of Tale 1. Part 2 of Main Story. At the cave of Zarordos had finished the first tale. "That was interesting," said Shalok. "But what was up with the samurai?" asked Alexis. "I thought he would have given the Wraith Master a chance to reform." "To be honest," said Zarordos, "I'm not certain." "Do you know any other tales?" asked Carrie. "Yes," said Zarordos, "this next tale started centuries ago." "What century?" asked Davis. "It takes place in the mid-16th century," said Zarordos. "It is about a vampire hunter and his sister." "What is it called?" asked Samuel. "It is called The Vampire Hunt, The Transformation," said Zarordos. "After the tale," said Bertorix, "do you think you could help Shalok in the relationship department?" "Do you mind?" said Shalok, "my skills in that department don't need help." "Oh really now," said Bertorix. At that moment, Shalok and Bertorix started duking it out. "If only I was that young again," said Zarordos. "It could have been worse," said Davis. "What do you mean?" asked Samuel. "Shalok could be after Borasia," said Davis. "Oh well," said Carrie, "things couldn't get any worse." The end of Part 2. Tale 2, The Vampire Hunt. The transformation. The year is 1562. The location is the northern land of Kryalia, in Kalakshan. The date is August 13th. It was on this day, when Lazarus Morgenstern had recently gotten closer on his quest. Lazarus is a vampire hunter. "Excellent," said Lazarus, "I shall find the vampire." Just then, Gulzalax Razorclaw, a Doraxian, walks into the room of the house where Lazarus was located in. "Comrade Lazarus," said Gulzalax, "finally, I have found you." "Old friend," said Lazarus, "it's about time you showed up." "What do you mean?" asked Gulzalax. "I had just gotten a major clue in my quest," said Lazarus. "What do you mean?" asked Gulzalax. "It's a coded message," said Lazarus. "I suspect it shows the location of the vampire warrior Shurcoulter." "How, am I involved?" asked Gulzalax. "I need your help in decoding the message," said Lazarus. "If you insist," said Gulzalax, "I will help." That was where Gulzalax had started the decoding of the message. The message was in an ancient text code. It consists of pictographs and text. "This is interesting," said Gulzalax. "What do you mean?" asked Lazarus. "Apparently," said Gulzalax, "this message states that the vampire Surecoulter wants to meet you." "Where does he want to meet me?" asked Lazarus. "It says that Surecoulter wants to meet you at the ancient ship." "It's east of here." "Excellent," said Lazarus. That was where Lazarus had gone and got his horse. At that moment, Samantha Morgenstern, Lazarus's sister, walks into the room. "Brother," said Samantha, "are you going out again?" "Indeed," said Lazarus, "this time, I am very close to finding Surecoulter." "Just be careful," said Samantha, "I suspect Surecoulter has a plan made for this situation." Just then, Gulzalax enters the room. "What did you find in the message?" asked Lazarus. "There's this strange part that I'm not certain about," said Gulzalax. "What do you mean?" asked Lazarus. "There's this symbol of a line of fire," said Gulzalax. "I must go to see Surecoulter," said Lazarus. "I will see to it, that his evil influence doesn't spread any farther." That was where Lazarus had gotten onto his horse. "In that case," said Samantha, "I wish you luck on your mission." "I also want to wish you luck," said Gulzalax. "Old friend," said Lazarus, "I will return, after I have vanquished Surecoulter." At that moment, Lazarus had started on his way to the east. The ship is located 18 kilometers from the home. A couple of hours later, Lazarus had made it to the ship. The ship has been docked at the port for days. The ship's structure had deteriorated over the years. That was where Lazarus had seen a person. "Comrade," said Lazarus, "do you know where Surecoulter is?" "Indeed," said the person, "if you want to see him, wait until dark." "But that is in 4 hours," said Lazarus. "Oh well." Little does Lazarus realize that Surecoulter had an evil plan that was being set in motion. Soon enough, 4 hours have passed. "Comrade," said the person, "Surecoulter will see you now." "Excellent," said Lazarus. That was where Lazarus had proceeded to the deck of the ship. At that moment, Surecoulter had stepped out from the captain's quarters. Surecoulter is dressed in regal attire. Surecoulter was once a prince 50,000 years ago. "Finally," said Surecoulter, "you have arrived." "Yeah," said Lazarus, "you shall not spread your evil influence." As soon as Lazarus said that, he had charged at Surecoulter. Lazarus had his blade ready. At that moment, Lazarus had knocked Surecoulter down. Lazarus had his blade at Surecoulter's throat. "Foolish mortal," said Surecoulter, "what makes you think you can stop me?" "I know," said Lazarus, "I have been hunting vampires for years. I am close to killing you." "You mortals are nothing more than pathetic weaklings," said Surecoulter. "We mortals have something that you don't," said Lazarus, "the human spirit. It makes us stronger." "Oh really now," said Surecoulter, "you don't even know what has already happened." "What do you mean?" asked Lazarus. "Your sister shall belong to the undead," said Surecoulter. "If you don't believe me, look behind you." That was where Lazarus looked in the distance. He had seen his house was wrecked. "My God," said Lazarus, "what have you done?" "All part of my plan," said Surecoulter. "I shall stop you," said Lazarus. At that moment, Lazarus had attacked Surecoulter. "If you kill me, vampire hunter," said Surecoulter, "you will never see your sister or your best friend again." "What? You couldn't possibly be telling the truth," said Lazarus, "you're lying." "If you don't believe me," said Surecoulter, "then go back to your home and find out." "In that case," said Lazarus, "I shall go back home." "If you're trying to trick me, you shall pay for your trickery." That was where Lazarus had gone back to his horse. He had started on his way to his home. He was traveling at full speed. "Samantha." "Gulzalax," said Lazarus, "I shall rescue you." All the while, Lazarus was getting closer to his home. As he was getting closer to home, he could see the extent of the damage. Soon enough, Lazarus had made it back home, only to find it completely demolished. Just then, Lazarus had found Gulzalax. Gulzalax was left for dead. "Lazarus," said Gulzalax, "you have arrived too late." "Gulzalax," said Lazarus, "I am sorry I got here too late." "Lazarus," said Gulzalax, "they have kidnapped your sister. They have ruined the house. I tried to stop them." "Who was behind this?" asked Lazarus. "Was it Surecoulter?" "Yes," said Gulzalax, "unfortunately, I had decoded the last part too late." "I should have known," said Lazarus. Samantha had a feeling about this. "Old friend," said Lazarus, "how could they have done this?" "Lazarus," said Gulzalax, "I know you will do what's right." "Gulzalax," said Lazarus, "where is my sister?" "They have taken her too," said Gulzalax, "the ancient cave." At that moment, Gulzalax had died. "Old friend," said Lazarus, "I shall avenge you." That was where Lazarus had gotten onto his horse, and headed to the cave. Meanwhile, at the ship, Shirkulter had already started on his way to the cave. Shirkulter had used a dark warp gate spell to get to the cave quickly. "I shall make Samantha Morgenstern one of the undead," said Shirkulter. Shirkulter had arrived at the cave. "Finally," said Shirkulter, "I have arrived." "Boss," said one of the henchmen, "you're here. The vampire hunter's sister is here." "Excellent," said Shirkulter, "let's get this over with." That was where Shirkulter had gone over to Samantha. "Ah," said Shirkulter, "such beauty. It is a shame she is the sister of my enemy." After he said that, he had picked up Samantha, and used his vampiric powers to transform her into a vampire. Samantha was unconscious at the time. "Now then," said Shirkulter, "let's go." That was where Shirkulter and his henchmen left the cave. Moments later, Lazarus had arrived, only to find Samantha. "My God," said Lazarus. That was where Lazarus had rushed over to Samantha. "What have they done to you?" said Lazarus. "I will avenge you." That was where Lazarus had moved Samantha's body out of the cave. He had placed Samantha's body on the horse. After he did that, Lazarus had made plans to place Samantha in a tomb. The next day, Lazarus had made sure on his plans to place Samantha in the tomb. "Samantha," said Lazarus, "I will find Shirkulter. And when I do, I will avenge you." At that moment, Lazarus had closed the door to the tomb. After he did that, he left the tomb. 3 centuries have passed. Shirkulter was not found. Lazarus was still trying to find him, but has failed. The year is 1862. The tomb where Samantha is in, has stood up against the elements. It was located in the graveyard near the town of Vancortia. It was 3 centuries to the day. In the tomb, there was a presence stirring. Soon enough, it had become night. A grave robber had made his way to the graveyard. The grave robber wasn't the only one there. There were several grave robbers in the area. Just then, one of the grave robbers had come across the tomb of Samantha Morgenstern. "Well," said Marcus, "it looks like I have found a major object." That was where another grave robber had gone over to the tomb. "It looks like a tomb of a noble," said one grave robber. "Well," said Marcus, the other grave robber, "let's open the tomb." That was where Marcus and the other grave robber opened the tomb. Marcus and the other grave robber were making their way to the inner sanctum. "This should be good," said Marcus. All the while, Marcus and the other grave robber had almost made it to the inner sanctum. All the while, a person was watching the events from a distance. The person is a Gryphonian warrior. "So," said the Gryphonian warrior, "it seems that the two are in the tomb. If I'm right, they will soon encounter a powerful being, which will cost them their lives." At that moment, the Gryphonian warrior had checked his heat signature scanners. He had also readied his wrist-mounted blade, and his plasma saber. "Well," said the Gryphonian warrior, "the energy level couldn't be that high. I'll wait for it. Although, I can feel an amount of excitement with the two humans." Just then, a winged warrior had entered the area, via a portal. The warrior is from the dimension of Faralor. She has a 2-pronged spear. Her helmet is shaped like a vulture. "All sire," said the Gryphonian warrior, "I should have figured that you would arrive in this dimension." "Really now, old friend," said All sire, "I thought you would be pleased to see me." "How long has it been since we last met?" 7,500 years ago, said the Gryphonian warrior, "but that's not the point. Why are you here?" "It's about the person in the tomb," said All sire. "What do you mean?" asked Zarin, the Gryphonian warrior, "unless you mean that the person is a vampire." "Now you catch on," said All sire. "But you must wait." "Why should I?" asked Zarin. "I suspect she will still retain her former side's humanity," said All sire. "Of course," said Zarin, "I sense that you are telling the truth." That was where the two warriors waited for the vampire. Meanwhile, the two grave robbers had made it to where the casket of Samantha Morgenstern was placed in. "Finally," said Marcus, "we're here." "Yeah," said the other grave robber, "looks like the casket is there." "Let's open it," said Marcus. That was where the two grave robbers had opened the casket. That was where the two grave robbers had found the lifeless body of Samantha Morgenstern. Little do they know that Samantha has become one of the undead, a vampire. "All right," said Marcus, "let's get the treasure." That was where the two grave robbers had started looting the place. At that moment, Marcus had heard some noises. The noises were coming from the casket. That was because Samantha was awakening. "Did you hear something?" asked Marcus. "It must have been your imagination," said Eugene. All the while, Samantha was waking up, and had also climbed out of the casket. At that moment, Marcus had seen something out of the corner of his eye. "Hey Eugene," said Marcus, "the body of the noble is moving around." "What do you mean?" asked Eugene. "Just turn around and you'll see what I mean," said Marcus. That was where Eugene had turned around to see Samantha Morgenstern moving around. Eugene and Marcus were trying to avoid getting caught, while still looting the place. Samantha was getting closer. "Let's get out of here," said Marcus. "All right," said Eugene. The two grave robbers had attempted to escape the tomb. Samantha had managed to catch Eugene. "Marcus," said Eugene, "you get going." "Leave me." "Not likely," said Marcus. That was where Marcus had attempted to save Eugene. It was too late. Samantha, now a vampire, had bitten Eugene on the neck. "Dear God," said Marcus, "what have you done?" "What did you expect?" said Samantha, "I am a vampire." At that moment, Marcus had attacked Samantha, in an attempt to avenge Eugene. That attack had failed, and Marcus was drained of blood. After Samantha drained the two grave robbers of blood, she left the tomb. She found that there was no signs of life. The other grave robbers had left the graveyard. "So," said Zarin, "the female vampire has left her tomb." "Indeed," said Alcire. "Where am I?" asked Samantha, "what year is this?" That was where Samantha had encountered Zarin and Alcire. "Do not worry, comrade," said Zarin, "all your questions will be answered." "Who are you two?" asked Samantha. "I am Zarin," said Zarin, "this is Alcire." "I am Samantha Morgenstern," said Samantha. "In regards to your questions," said Zarin, "you are in Vancortia. The year is 1862. "What has happened to me?" asked Samantha. "Apparently," said Zarin, "you have become a vampire." "What happened to my brother, Lazarus?" asked Samantha. "The last thing I know," said Zarin, "is that Lazarus had died, searching for the vampire Coulter." "Then all is lost," said Samantha. "That is not true," said Zarin, "you are still alive." "Why do I bother?" said Samantha. "Alcire and I will teach you to keep your powers under control," said Zarin. "Besides, I sense that you still have some good in you." "In that case," said Samantha, "I agree to your deal." At that moment, Samantha had teamed up with Zarin and Alcire. Little does she realize that Coulter is at large, and that he knows about her awakening. The end of Tale 2. Part 3 of Main Stories. Arordos had just finished telling the tale of the vampire hunter and his sister. "Well, Syads Arordos, what did you think of the tale?" "I have a few questions about the tale," said Carrie. "First of all, how did Samantha know that she was a vampire?" "Yeah," said Samuel, "why did Coulter have a line of fire on the message?" "In regards to your questions," said Arordos, "Samantha could sense that she had been changed. Coulter was trying to give Lazarus a false clue." "Wait a minute," said Davis, "how did Alexander know who Ivan's father was?" "Yeah," said Angela, "Alexander never met Ivan before the encounter in the diner." "Well," said Arordos, "Alexander's uncle had met Enrico before the incident with the cloaked individual, whom was later revealed to be the Wraith Master." "What was Apra thinking with that kind of reward?" said Alexis. "To be honest," said Arordos, "I'm not certain." "What happened to the Wraith Master's henchmen after the downfall of the Wraith Master?" asked Samuel. "The troll and the others had managed to escape the castle, using the rear entrance," said Arordos. "Tulok had escaped after his fight with Alexander." "Whatever happened to Alexander, Santora, and Ivan?" asked Shalok. "Yeah," said Berterix. "Well," said Arordos, "the trio had gone back to Alexander's hometown. Alexander had returned the frontier warrior's armor to its rightful place. Ivan and Santora had accompanied Alexander on his adventures. Do you know any other tales?" asked Samuel. "Yes," said Arordos, "this tale is about a robotic dragon." "Interesting," said Borasia. "What is it called?" asked Samuel. "It is called The Discovery, Fireclaw's Awakening," said Zarordos. Interesting, said Samuel. The end of Part 3. Tale 3, The Discovery. Fireclaw's Awakening. The year is 2001. The date in question is April 26. The location is the space near the Euraxia/Zov-Tortaxa galaxy border. This is where Explorer vessel is located. The Explorer vessel is from the Democratic Republic of Planets. The Democratic Republic of Planets is allied with the United Government of Territories. The Explorer vessel's name is Star Traveler. The captain is Captain Joseph Williams. The vessel was on a mission to chart the space near the border. "All right, crew," said Captain Williams, "what do the sensors say?" "Sir," said the radar officer, Alexander Riker, "there seems to be no readings." Said Captain Williams, "I thought there would be some signs of energy. Or at the very least, a signal from a probe." Just then, the radar officer had seen a signal on the radar. "Sir," said Alexander, "there's a sign on the radar. It's a faint one." "In that case," said Captain Williams, "go to the location, and have the source beamed on board." "Understood, sir," said Alexander. That was where the Explorer vessel moves to the location of the source. Meanwhile, in a floating fortress in another part of space, someone was watching the events. "Well," said the person, "the crew is on a mission. Let's just see how this turns out." That was where the person had sent for the leader of the Recon Scout Squadron. "Lord Calac," said the Recon Scout Squadron leader, "why have you called me?" "You are to scout out the energy signature at the coordinates on the radar," said Lord Calac. "Understood, sire," said the squadron leader. That was where the squadron leader had gone to the landing pad. Meanwhile, the Explorer vessel had made it to the location of the energy signature. The source was brought on board. The captain had his best scientists and engineers at the teleporter pad. That was where the captain of the ship had entered the room where the teleporter pad is located. "So," said Captain Williams, "what do we have here?" "It looks like some kind of robot," said Michael. "In that case," said Captain Williams, "let's report back to the base." "Understood, sir," said Michael. That was where the Explorer vessel had gone back to the base on the planet of Teloria. Teloria is next to Cheeksel. All the while, the Recon Scout Squadron had made it to the site of the energy signature, only to find it missing. "Sire," said the squadron leader, "there is no energy signature here." "Then keep searching," said Lord Calac, "try the neighboring planet." The planet in question is Teloria. Meanwhile, on the planet of Teloria, in another section of the planet, a major event was happening. The location on the planet is the eastern section. The event is several workers at a power plant, trying to hide some toxic waste. The location is a forest region. The forest is near a swamp. "Let's just get the waste hidden," said one of the workers. That was where the workers had placed some drums of toxic waste in the swamp. Little do they know that the toxic waste had mutated a creature into a monster. The creature was watching the workers. The creature has a body like an alligator. On its back was a shark's fin. The creature is over 10 feet in length. "Hey guys! Did you hear something?" said one of the workers. "No," said another worker. All of a sudden, the creature had attacked. The workers had no chance to defend themselves. Meanwhile, at the base, the scientists were examining the robot. "Well," said Dr. Alan Davidson, "it seems like the robot is of alien design." "What are you able to find out about it?" asked Captain Williams. "Well," said Dr. Davidson, "it seems the robot's memory banks have some gaps in it." "Well," said Captain Williams, "let's get the robot up and running." "Understood, sir," said Dr. Davidson. That was where the scientists had attempted to power up the robot. It had no effect. "By the ancient world," said Dr. Davidson, "it's not working." "Then keep trying," said Captain Williams. Little do they know that the creature is making his way to the base. Meanwhile, in another part of space, a person was traveling through space. The person is similar to the robotic dragon. The only difference is that the person has dark scales, unlike the red scales of the robot. The person is the evil dragon bot known as Shadow Wing. All the while, the Recon Scout Squadron had traveled to Teloria. The creature was quickly making his way to the base. The distance between the base and the swamp was 7.8 km. "Sire," said the squadron leader, "we are getting closer to the signal." "Excellent," said Lord Calac, "once you find the location, hold your position." "Understood, sire," said the squadron leader. Meanwhile, the scientists were continuing their efforts to power up the robot. All the while, the creature was making his way to the base. The creature had made it into range of the base. That was where the soldiers had seen the creature coming. The soldiers had alerted the rest of the base. After the soldiers alerted the base, they had gone to defend against the creature. Their attempts had no effect on the creature's scales. Meanwhile, Lord Calac was watching the events. "So," said Lord Calac, "the Recon Scout Squadron had made it near the base of the Democratic Republic of Planets." Just then, the Recon Scout Squadron leader had contacted Lord Calac. "Sire," said the squadron leader, "we've found the site of the energy signal." "Excellent," said Lord Calac, "hold your position." "Understood, sire," said the squadron leader. All the while, the creature was making short work of the soldiers. The creature was making his way to the base's inner sectors. "Perhaps," said Lord Calac, "this creature can do the dirty work for me." Meanwhile, in the lab, Captain Williams was alerted to the presence of the creature. "I'll try to hold the creature off," said Captain Williams. "I don't think it's a good idea," said Dr. Davidson. "You're probably right," said Captain Williams. All the while, the creature was getting closer to the lab. Soon enough, the creature had made it to the lab. "By the ancient world," said Dr. Davidson, "the creature's here." Just then, one of the scientists had noticed the robot twitch. "Sir," said the scientist, "the robot had just twitched." "Then we must be making progress," said Dr. Davidson. All of a sudden, the creature had made it to the lab. "My God," said the scientist. "I'll handle him," said Captain Williams. That was where Captain Williams had attempted to take on the creature. Captain Williams ended up getting knocked out. The creature then proceeded to go after the scientists. All the while, the robot was coming to life. Systems powering up. The robot's onboard computer system said, "Conversion tech functioning." At that moment, the robot had awakened. Dr. Davidson was the first to see the robot awaken. "Excellent," said Dr. Davidson, "now you're going to be in trouble, creature." The creature had only roared. "Hey creature," said the robot, "let's bring it on." The creature had turned to face the robot. "Fireclaw, convert to bot form," said Fireclaw. At that moment, Fireclaw converted to robot form. His dragon form's head flipped back to reveal the robot head. His robot form's arms flip out from the sides, with the dragon form's arms folding back, near the wings. The tail detaches from the body. The dragon form's legs extend out to become the robot form's legs. The chest plating folds back to form the robot mode's chest. "So," said Fireclaw, "you want to harm these people?" "I will not allow that to happen." The creature only growled at Fireclaw. "My God," said Dr. Davidson, "the robot seems to be fully functional." At that moment, the creature had charged at Fireclaw. The creature had attempted to fight Fireclaw. Meanwhile, in another part of space, Shadow Wing had sensed Fireclaw's energy level. So, Shadow Wing said to himself, "Fireclaw's back online. I shall meet my old friend." At that moment, Shadow Wing had headed towards the planet of Teloria. All of a sudden, Lord Calac's floating fortress had come into view. "What matter of alien magic is this?" said Shadow Wing. "Shadow Wing, convert to robot form." Shadow Wing had started converting to robot form. His robot form's head shifts up into place. His dragon form's head forms the shoulder plate on his right arm. The robot form's arms extend out from the dragon's arms. His dragon mode's legs extend out to form the robot form's legs. The wings fold up behind him. The dragon form's tail detaches from the body. In his robot state, Shadow Wing stands over 8 feet in height. Shadow Wing has a targeting device on his left eye. "Identify yourself," said Shadow Wing. "I am Lord Calac of the Tulorcan Empire," said Lord Calac. "Who might you be?" "The creatures of this realm call me Shadow Wing," said Shadow Wing. "Now get out of my way, so I can find the energy level." "I don't think so," said Lord Calac. At that moment, the energy cannons on the floating fortress started firing at Shadow Wing. The blasts had no effect on Shadow Wing's armor. "Foolish Tulorcan," said Shadow Wing, "when your ancestors built me, they broke the mold." "Arg," said Lord Calac, "how dare you insult me?" Just then, a Tulorcan soldier enters the room. "Sire," said the soldier, "if you don't mind me saying, but we did create Shadow Wing." "Do you mind?" said Lord Calac. "Sire," said the soldier, "might I suggest retreating?" Hardly, said Lord Calac. Boys, unleash the ultra cannon. That was where the soldiers had activated the ultra cannon. Fire the cannon, said Lord Calac. At that moment, the ultra cannon had fired at Shadow Wing. It had no effect on Shadow Wing. Didn't I tell you before, said Shadow Wing, nothing can stop me. You know something, said Lord Calac, it's now a good idea to retreat. At that moment, the floating fortress had warped out of the area. That was easy, said Shadow Wing. Shadow Wing, convert to beast mode. Shadow Wing had converted to beast mode, and headed to Teloria. Meanwhile, on Teloria, Fireclaw had beaten the creature. Well, said Fireclaw, that was easy. That was amazing, said Dr. Davidson, you have beaten the creature so easily. Indeed, said Fireclaw, I'm Fireclaw. Who might you be? I am Dr. Alan Davidson, said Dr. Davidson, just where are you from? Fireclaw had attempted to scan through his memory banks, but couldn't find any files. That's odd, said Fireclaw, I do not remember anything about my homeworld. That is odd indeed, said Dr. Davidson. At that moment, Fireclaw had sensed Shadow Wing's energy. I have a bad feeling about the energy level, said Fireclaw. Moments later, Shadow Wing had arrived at the lab. Fireclaw had exited the lab to confront Shadow Wing. So, said Shadow Wing, we meet again. After all these millennia, we come face to face. Indeed, said Fireclaw. At that moment, Fireclaw's memory banks came up with a file on Shadow Wing. By the ancient worlds, said Fireclaw, Shadow Wing. I should have known. Ha! You finally remember me, said Shadow Wing. Shadow Wing, convert to robot form. Shadow Wing had converted to robot form. Now we shall fight, said Shadow Wing. Hardly, said Fireclaw. I should have figured, said Shadow Wing, you're nothing but a weakling. Just then, Lord Calac's forces had arrived. So, said Shadow Wing, Lord Calac's forces are here. That was where Shadow Wing had dealt with the forces. After Shadow Wing battled Lord Calac's forces, he turned to face Fireclaw. We will meet again one day, said Shadow Wing. That was where Shadow Wing left the planet. That was weird, said Fireclaw. I thought he and Fireclaw would fight each other, said Dr. Davidson. That was where Captain Williams regained consciousness. Well, said Captain Williams, it looks like the robot is operational. Indeed, said Fireclaw, you must be the captain of the vessel that brought me here. Yes, said Captain Williams, I am the captain of the Star Traveler. I thank you humans for finding me, said Fireclaw, also, for reactivating me. That was where Fireclaw had looked up to the sky. We shall meet again, Fireclaw said to himself. You're thinking about the other robot, said Dr. Davidson. Indeed, said Fireclaw, if only I could remember any more data on the past. I might be able to help on that matter, said Dr. Davidson. What do you mean? Asked Fireclaw. I might be able to repair your circuitry, said Dr. Davidson. I shall let you help me, said Fireclaw. That was where Fireclaw had sat on the seat. Dr. Davidson had started working on Fireclaw's circuitry. Meanwhile, in outer space, Shadow Wing was traveling through space. I will have my revenge, Shadow Wing said to himself, for what happened thousands of years ago. Little does Shadow Wing know that Lord Calac had moved the fort to behind the moon of Teloria. So, said Lord Calac, the robot is functional. The other robot, Shadow Wing, is out there somewhere. My forces have been beaten. This is another fine day. Fireclaw and the scientists don't know that Lord Calac is hiding out in orbit around the planet. Fireclaw and the scientists don't know what Lord Calac and Shadow Wing have in store for Fireclaw. The end of Tale 3. Part 4 of Main Story. Zarordos had just finished up telling the tale of the robot Fireclaw. So, said Zarordos, what did you think of the story? Very interesting, said Samuel. I have one question, said Angela. How did Dr. Davidson know about Fireclaw's memory bank glitches? Fireclaw wasn't activated yet. True, Fireclaw wasn't activated, said Zarordos, but Dr. Davidson had noticed some of the internal circuitry was damaged. Where was Fireclaw from? Said Davis. The only thing I know about that, said Zarordos, it's a planet in the region of space governed by the Supreme Military Federation. I'm not sure on the name of the planet. Just when was Fireclaw constructed? Asked Alexis. I'm not sure on the exact date, said Zarordos, but I have a good idea that it's somewhere between the 80th century and 90th century BC. Just then, Bertorix had checked his watch. "Well," said Bertorix, "it looks like it's getting late." "In that case," said Zarordos, "I better let you guys go." "Well," said Carrie, "goodbye." "Until next time," said Zarordos. That was where the eight had left the cave of Zarordos the ancient dragon. The end. Epilogue. After the eight friends left the cave, they went back to their homes. The next day, Shalok and Bertorix have completed the rest of their video. Before the eight friends left the cave, Alexis had asked Zarordos why Shadow Wing decided not to fight Fireclaw after all. Zarordos said he wasn't sure, but stated he suspected that Shadow Wing had something planned for Fireclaw in the future.
Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more content. Let's not forget to leave comments if you like.